Sometimes people are tempted to think of evil as a thing. It's kind of like this big, dark, gooey stuff that's floating around the universe, and it gets on you, and then you do these things that are dictated by the evil that has influenced you now. And if evil is a thing and God created all things, well, then God created evil. I mean, that seems to follow. I think the problem here is thinking about evil as a thing. I think this is a mistake. And what I often ask people is this question: have you ever eaten a donut hole? Now, I don't mean those round gut bombs that you eat after church on Sunday, you know. I mean the hole. Well, you say, well, a donut hole isn't something you can eat. Actually, a donut hole isn't something at all. It's nothing. It's the place where the donut ain't, kind of thing, you know. Philosophers put it this way: the donut hole does not have ontological status. In other words, it doesn't have being. It's a word that we use to describe where something is missing. A shadow's the same way. Shadows don't exist in the sense that there's something. Shadows are rather where light is not. Now, I think that this way of thinking is very, very helpful when thinking about evil. Evil isn't a thing that needed to be created. Rather, evil is a whole in goodness. This is the way St. Augustine thought, and Thomas Aquinas kind of introduced this up, but it's very accessible to most people when you think of it in those terms. So it isn't as if evil was something that needed to be created. What God did was create a world in which there was complete goodness. And notice in the beginning, when we read about the account, this was good, and this was good, and this was good, and this, it was all good. God created the world good, just as it was supposed to be. But human freedom then was used in such a way as to diminish goodness in the world, and that diminution, that lack, that missing goodness, that is what we call evil. That hole in goodness, if you will. No, God could not create evil, but that's not a limitation in God. That's just a kind of a positive way of saying a negative thing, or maybe I should say it's a negative way of saying a positive thing. To say that God cannot create evil is not to identify a lack in God, but to identify something good in God. It's a capability. God can never fail to do everything good. And to create something evil would be a failure to do good. And God is too good to do that. He's perfectly good, therefore he can't fail in any way.